Imagine a disease that is, well, entirely curable, like entirely preventable.
Uh,
It literally gives you a 10-year warning to stop it. And yet, somehow, it still manages to be one of the leading causes of cancer death in the world.
it's wild to think about.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a massive, honestly terrifying paradox in human health.
Yeah, we really
We're
are.
talking about colon cancer
Right.
and how a combination of silent biology and, just deep cultural taboo has created this perfect storm.
Mhm.
But more importantly, we're talking about how you actually have the power to stop it cold.
It really is the ultimate paradox. I mean, you're dealing with a biological process that actively masks its own existence for years.
Right.
And it's happening in a part of the body that society culturally conditions us to just never, ever talk about.
Yeah, like pretend it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And that combination is lethal.
It is because usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of like precision and visibility.
Yeah.
You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, there it is.
Right. It's broken.
Yeah, it's broken. We like things to be neatly categorized and immediately identifiable.
But when you step into the world of gastrointestinal health,
Mm-hmm.
that immediate visibility just vanishes.
Totally disappears.
You're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is hidden from daily view. It operates completely in the dark.
Right?
So to combat a disease that thrives in silence and darkness, the public health response has had to rely on bringing it into the light visually.
Which brings us to our source material for today. We have this incredible guide we're pulling from called The Dark Blue Ribbon, a guide to colon cancer awareness.
It's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And our mission today is to dig into the medical realities it highlights, understand the mechanics of prevention, and figure out how a simple dark blue ribbon functions as a life-saving tool.
And a symbol of community, too.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the dark blue ribbon acts as the anchor for this entire awareness movement.
It does. It's the universal symbol for colon cancer or colorectal cancer, awareness.
I have to push back a little right out of the gate, though.
Go for it.
We see awareness ribbons for literally everything now. Pink for breast cancer, puzzle pieces, yellow ribbons. I mean, it can feel like a saturated market?
Oh, absolutely. Ribbon fatigue is a real thing.
Right. So is pinning a piece of dark blue fabric to your lapel actually doing anything to stop a biological mutation in someone's large intestine?
Well, it is, but not in a direct, magical sort of way.
Right. It's not a force field.
No. What's fascinating here is how it works through psychological leverage.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Think about the cultural weight of discussing the colon or the rectum.
Oh, it's massive. Right.
If you're at a dinner party or standing around the water cooler at work, you're not going to casually bring up your bowel habits
Definitely not.
or your upcoming rectal exam. It is just the ultimate taboo.
It's the ultimate conversation killer. People would just slowly back away from you.
Exactly. We are taught from childhood that the digestive system, particularly waste elimination, is private, it's dirty, and it's definitely not for polite conversation.
And that silence is what the disease relies on to kill you.
That is exactly it. If you're too embarrassed to tell your doctor that you've noticed changes in your digestion or, blood at the bathroom, the disease wins.
Wow.
The dark blue ribbon is strategically deployed to bypass that initial social awkwardness.
So it's a visual cue.
Yes,
Yeah.
it functions as a cue that says, I am open to this conversation. It shifts the narrative from one of private, isolated suffering to public communal prevention.
I love that. So the ribbon is essentially acting as a social permission slip.
A permission slip. That's a great way to put it.
By wearing it, you're telling your community that it's okay to acknowledge this part of the human body exists.
Right.
You are actively choosing to prioritize survival over social discomfort.
And that permission slip is vital because of how this specific cancer
The
operates.
silent biology part.
Exactly. To understand why we need a cultural battering ram just to get people into a doctor's office, we have to look closely at the mechanical reality of the disease.
We have to look at the colon itself.
We do.
Okay, let's unpack the biology of this. The large intestine, the colon. What is actually happening down there that makes it such a breeding ground for this disease?
Think of the colon as the final stage of a highly active, incredibly complex biological processing plant.
Okay.
Its primary job is to absorb water and electrolytes from indigestible food matter and process waste.
Just extracting all the leftover good stuff.
Right. And because of the nature of this work, the lining of the colon, the mucosa, is constantly replacing its own cells.
Oh, interesting.
It has a very, very high rate of cellular turnover. Cells are born, they do their job, they die, and they are shed.
So it's like a conveyor belt.
A very rapid one.
Yeah.
And anytime you have millions of cells constantly dividing and replicating their DNA, you have the opportunity for a copying error.
A mutation.
Exactly. A biological typo. Usually, your immune system or the cell's own internal proofreading mechanisms catch the error.
And they just destroy it. Right.
Yes, the mutated cell is destroyed.
Right.
But sometimes, a mutated cell slips past the defense systems.
It hides.
It does. It starts replicating, making more copies of that typo, and it forms a small, fleshy clump on the lining of the colon.
And that's a polyp.
That's a polyp. Specifically, an adenomatous polyp, or adenoma.
Okay, I've heard that term.
Now, not all polyps become cancer, but almost all colon cancers start as polyps.
And here's the detail from the guide that absolutely stopped me in my tracks when I was reading it.
Good timeline.
Yes, the timeline. These polyps can exist for years.
Oh, yeah. 5, 10, sometimes even 15 years.
That is insane. They just sit there on the colon wall, completely silently, slowly accumulating more and more DNA mutations.
Right up until they cross the threshold.
Yeah, until they cross over from a benign clump of cells into a malignant tumor that can actually invade the colon wall and spread.
That multi-year window where the polyp is just sitting there, not yet cancerous, that is the biological grace period.
That's the 10-year warning we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. During that entire decade, it is entirely removable.
So why don't people feel it? If there's a growth inside you, shouldn't you feel a pinch or something?
You would think so. But the problem is, because the colon is a relatively large, expandable tube, a small or even medium-sized polyp doesn't block anything.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't cause pain. It doesn't trigger a fever.
It's a stealth invader.
Precisely. It is actively masking its own development by simply being small enough not to disrupt the plumbing.
Wait, okay. If it takes 10 years for a polyp to grow and mutate into cancer, I need you to explain a massive demographic shift we are seeing right now.
The younger patients.
Yes. Historically, we've always treated this as a disease of aging. You hit 50, you start getting checked.
Right, that was the old standard.
But the data in the guide now shows a terrifying spike in people in their 30s and even late 20s being diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. It's incredibly concerning.
That timeline doesn't make sense to me. If a 35-year-old is diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer and it takes 10 years to develop, does that mean the polyp started growing when they were 25?
That is the exact mathematical reality that is keeping oncologists awake at night right now.
Wow, 25.
Yes. It means the physiological conditions that allow these cellular typos to thrive are happening much, much earlier in life.
And it fundamentally changes the risk profile for the average person listening to this right now.
It really does. You can't just assume you're too young anymore.
It makes me think of home ownership.
How so?
It's like discovering severe termite damage in the foundation of a house that was built 5 years ago rather than a 100-year-old historic home.
Oh, that's a brilliant comparison.
Right, because you expect an old house to have foundational issues.
Uh,
The wood has been exposed to the elements for a century.
Right.
You know you have to check for them.
Yeah. But if you find out that brand new builds are getting their foundations eaten away, it fundamentally changes when you need to start inspecting.
Yes, exactly.
You can't just wait 20 years and assume everything is fine. You have to be proactive almost immediately.
The termite analogy is incredibly apt because, just like termites, the damage is happening behind the drywall where you can't see or feel it until the floorboards literally cave in.
That is a terrifying thought.
And the medical community is aggressively researching why the timeline is accelerating for younger generations.
What's the leading theory? Because it can't just be a coincidence that millennials and Gen Z are suddenly sprouting polyps a decade earlier than their grandparents did.
It's definitely not a coincidence. It's likely a complex web of environmental and lifestyle factors that are altering the microbiome.
The trillions of bacteria living in your gut.
Right. Think about the massive changes in the modern human diet over the last 40 years.
It's all a process now.
Completely. We have seen a huge increase in ultra-processed foods, emulsifiers, synthetic dyes, and a drastic reduction in dietary fiber.
Yeah, nobody eats enough fiber.
Add in sedentary lifestyles, microplastics, environmental toxins, and you are essentially creating a highly inflammatory environment in the colon.
So we are essentially bathing the mucosal lining of our colons in an inflammatory soup that accelerates those DNA copying errors.
That is exactly what the research suggests.
Wow.
Chronic inflammation forces cells to turn over even faster to repair damage. And naturally, that increases the likelihood of mutation.
Because the conveyor belt is moving too fast.
Exactly. And simultaneously, that inflammation weakens the immune system's ability to spot and destroy those rogue cells.
It's a double whammy.
It really is. This is why the Dark Blue Ribbon campaigns focus so heavily on educating people about these specific, manageable risks.
Because it's not just about age anymore.
No, not at all. It's about your family history, your diet, your lifestyle choices, and understanding that the clock might be ticking faster than we historically assumed.
Which brings us to the most critical part of this entire discussion.
The screening.
Yes. If polyps are hiding in the dark, growing for years, and now they are growing in younger and younger people, how do we find them before they turn into cancer?
Right.
And that leads us to what the guide calls the absolute gold standard of prevention, the colonoscopy.
The colonoscopy is arguably one of the most powerful tools in modern medicine, but it is also, unfortunately, one of the most misunderstood and feared.
Oh, totally. But let's demystify it right now, because when you actually look at the mechanics of what a colonoscopy accomplishes, it is genuinely a superpower.
It really is.
We need to look at how it physically works.
To appreciate the colonoscopy, you have to compare it to other common cancer screenings.
Okay.
Like a mammogram or a PSA blood test for prostate cancer. Those are incredible, life-saving tools, but they only detect an anomaly.
Right. They say, hey, look over here.
Exactly. A mammogram spots a suspicious shadow. A blood test spots an elevated protein marker. Once they find it, you have to schedule a biopsy, wait for results, and then schedule a surgery to remove it. They are strictly diagnostic tools.
But a colonoscopy isn't just diagnostic.
No. A colonoscopy collapses diagnosis and cure into a single real-time procedure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How do they actually do that?
Well, the gastroenterologist navigates a flexible lighted tube with a high-definition camera through the entire length of the colon.
Okay.
They're looking at the mucosal wall on a monitor in real time. If they spot a polyp, that biological typo we talked about, they don't just make a note of it for later.
They don't just say, we'll get back to that.
No. The scope is equipped with tiny instruments, usually a wire loop called a snare.
This is the superpower part.
Exactly. They slide the snare over the polyp, cinch it tight, and apply a tiny electrical current.
Oh, wow.
The current simultaneously cuts the polyp off the colon wall and cauterizes the wound to prevent bleeding.
It just snips it right off.
Right off. The polyp is captured, pulled out of the body, and sent to a lab. And in that one moment, the cancer is entirely 100% prevented from forming from that specific growth.
It's like having a high-tech security camera that not only alerts you to an intruder creeping through the hallways, but is equipped with a trapdoor that physically drops the intruder out of the house before they can steal anything.
I love that visual. That's exactly what it is.
You wake up from the anesthesia and the threat is it's just gone.
That is the dual function superpower. Detection and prevention occurring simultaneously.
It's amazing.
And yet, despite this being a literal cure for cancer before it even becomes cancer, we still have that paradox.
Right. People are still dying from it.
It is still a leading cause of cancer death. Because to get the superpower, you have to overcome the psychological and physical hurdle of the procedure itself.
Yeah, let's talk about the hurdle. Because no one wakes up excited to get a colonoscopy.
Nobody.
The fear and discomfort are real, and they usually start long before the camera even enters the room.
Oh, the prep.
It starts with the prep.
The preparation is universally cited as the worst part of the experience.
I've heard horror stories.
Everybody has. But if you understand why it works the way it does, it actually makes the process a little easier to mentally manage.
I want to know the mechanics of the prep. Because you are essentially tasked with completely emptying an organ whose entire job is to hold on to things.
Right. It's designed to store waste.
So how do the medications they give you actually achieve that clear out?
They use a class of medications called osmotic laxatives. Often it's a polyethylene glycol solution.
Okay, big words. What does that mean?
Normally, your colon extracts water from your waste to form solid stool.
Right.
An osmotic laxative flips that biological process in reverse. The solution contains a heavy concentration of molecules that your body simply cannot absorb.
So they just sit there.
They sit there. And as this liquid moves into the intestines, it creates an osmotic gradient. Instead of the colon pulling water out of the waste, the high concentration of the laxative pulls massive amounts of water from your body into the colon.
Oh, wow. So it essentially creates a controlled internal flood.
Exactly. It floods the entire intestinal tract, liquefying everything and flushing it out with sheer volume and hydraulic pressure.
That sounds intense.
It is uncomfortable. You will spend several hours in the bathroom, and you might experience cramping or chills as your body's fluid dynamics shift so rapidly.
But it's absolutely necessary.
That clear runway is non-negotiable. If the colon isn't perfectly clean, the high-definition camera can't see the tiny, flat polyps hiding against the pink tissue.
Oh, they can be flat.
Yes, not all polyps are raised like little mushrooms. Some are flat against the wall. A bad prep means the doctor might miss the exact intruder they're looking for.
So the Dark Blue Ribbon awareness campaigns aren't just trying to make people comfortable talking about cancer.
No.
They are trying to convince people to voluntarily subject themselves to a night of chemically induced misery. How do you actually market that?
You market it through radical transparency and reframing the math of the situation.
Reframing the math.
The campaigns, the patient advocates, they drag these fears into the light. They say, yes, the prep is unpleasant. Yes, the concept of the procedure might make you feel vulnerable. But let's look at the alternative.
Right. The alternative is waiting to see if you get sick.
And that brings us to a massive, glaring warning from the guide for anyone listening who thinks they can just wait for a sign that something is wrong.
The danger of relying on symptoms.
It is the most sobering reality of this disease.
Let's outline what those symptoms are anatomically so you understand what is actually happening inside your body when they finally appear.
Okay.
The common signs are changes in bowel habits, blood in the stool, abdominal discomfort, unexplained weight loss, and extreme fatigue.
Right.
But why do these happen?
Remember that the early stage polyp is silent because it's too small to block anything.
Mm-hmm.
But as a tumor grows, it begins to take up physical space in the colon. If it grows large enough, it narrows the passageway.
Like a kink in a hose.
Exactly. That is why you see changes in bowel habits. The stool literally has to squeeze past the tumor, resulting in thinner, pentle-like shapes or causing severe constipation followed by diarrhea as the body tries to clear the blockage.
It's a physical, mechanical obstruction.
Precisely. And tumors are highly vascular. They grow their own chaotic, fragile blood vessels to feed themselves.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. As waste passes by, it creates friction, causing these fragile vessels to tear and bleed.
And that is where the blood in the stool comes from.
Yes.
But what about the fatigue and weight loss? If it's a localized blockage in the gut, why does the whole body feel like it's shutting down?
That has to do with the systemic impact of the disease.
Okay.
The fatigue is often caused by microbleeding. The tumor might be bleeding so slowly that you don't even see the blood in the toilet. But over months, you are slowly losing red blood cells.
Oh, so you become anemic.
You develop iron deficiency anemia. Your body simply doesn't have enough oxygen-carrying cells to function normally, so you feel a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix.
That makes so much sense. And the weight loss.
The weight loss occurs because the cancer cells are aggressively consuming your body's energy stores to fuel their own rapid growth.
They're stealing your calories.
They are. And the tumor itself is releasing chemical signals that alter your metabolism and suppress your appetite.
So by the time you are experiencing severe fatigue or dropping weight without trying, the disease is no longer a localized, easily snappable polyp.
No, not at all.
It has established a foothold. It is altering your body's entire systemic function.
Exactly. Relying on symptoms is basically like waiting for the smoke alarm on your ceiling to physically melt and drip plastic onto your floor before checking to see if there's a fire.
By the time the plastic is melting, the house is already engulfed.
You are already too late. You need to check the battery, you need the screening, well, the house is quiet and everything still seems perfectly fine.
Which means we have to radically redefine what it means to be healthy.
We do.
We assume that feeling fine means we're in the clear, but feeling fine is not enough.
It isn't. And that is why survivorship stories are the cornerstone of the Dark Blue Ribbon movement.
Because they made it real.
You need real people standing up and saying, I ran marathons, I ate kale, I felt fantastic, but I got my colonoscopy at 45 and they found 3 precancerous polyps.
It completely shatters the illusion that you can simply intuit your own internal health.
Exactly.
But the awareness campaigns don't just stop at the doctor's office, do they?
No, they don't.
They also push heavily into the concept of daily prevention. We talked earlier about the inflammatory soup in the gut that accelerates mutations.
Right, the microbiome.
How do we cool that inflammation down? Because everyone always says, eat healthy and exercise.
It's such generic advice.
Right. I want to know the actual mechanics. How does eating a piece of broccoli actually protect my colon?
Let's talk about dietary fiber, because it is the absolute unsung hero of gastrointestinal health.
Okay, let's hear it.
Fiber isn't just roughage. that pushes waste through the system. Although that mechanical sweeping is important because it reduces the transit time.
Meaning things move faster.
Right. The faster waste moves through, the less time potential carcinogens are in contact with the colon wall.
That makes sense.
But the real magic of fiber happens at the microscopic level with your microbiome.
The bacteria we were talking about.
Right. You cannot digest dietary fiber yourself, but the trillions of beneficial bacteria in your colon can.
Oh, so you're feeding them.
Yes. When you eat complex plant fibers, broccoli, beans, whole grains, those bacteria ferment the fiber. And the byproduct of that fermentation process is a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate.
Butyrate. Okay, what does butyrate do?
Butyrate is incredible. It is the primary energy source for the cells lining your colon. It keeps the mucosal barrier strong and healthy.
Oh, wow.
But more importantly, butyrate has potent anti-inflammatory properties, and it actually has the ability to induce apoptosis in colon cancer cells.
Wait, really? Apoptosis? You mean programmed cell death? So the byproduct of digesting a vegetable can trigger cancer cells to effectively commit suicide.
At a microscopic cellular level, yes, it creates an environment that is deeply, fundamentally hostile to tumor growth.
That is mind-blowing.
Conversely, when you consume excessive alcohol, the body breaks it down into acetaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen that directly damages DNA.
Yeeks.
And when you eat a diet high in processed meats, the preservatives can form chemical compounds in the gut that aggravate the lining.
So when the campaigns tell you to change your diet, they aren't just giving generic wellness advice.
Not at all.
They are telling you how to alter the actual chemical environment of your colon on a daily basis.
It's extending the ethos of the dark blue ribbon right into your kitchen and your daily routine.
But, as much as we talk about prevention and survival and these medical superpowers, the deep dive requires us to confront the reality that this disease is still fatal for many.
It is a heartbreaking reality.
The ultimate goal of prevention hasn't reached everyone yet. And the way we process that loss as a culture is fascinating and honestly a bit devastating.
It's a critical part of the narrative. When a community faces a disease that takes lives quietly and invisibly, the grief requires a physical anchor.
And this brings us to a very specific sociological phenomenon surrounding the dark blue ribbon. We've talked about it as a medical tool, as a social permission slip. But for families who have lost loved ones, the ribbon undergoes a profound psychological transformation.
It becomes a totem of remembrance.
Yes. And in reading the source guide, we see the rise of organizations specifically dedicated to this intersection of grief and public health.
A physical totem is essential in the psychology of grief.
Why is that?
Well, when you lose someone to a disease like colon cancer, especially if they were young or if it was discovered too late, there's an overwhelming sense of helplessness.
Right.
The sudden absence of a life is really hard for the human brain to process. We need an object to hold. We need something visible to represent the invisible pain.
And one of the organizations facilitating this, which the guide highlights extensively, is the Funeral Program site.
They do incredible work.
They've become one of the largest providers of highly customizable, ready-to-wear dark blue ribbons.
Yes.
You don't just buy a generic ribbon. You print your loved one's name, their birth date, their date of passing, or a specific heartfelt message right onto the fabric.
And that customization is vital. It takes a massive, global, terrifying statistics, with millions of people diagnosed, and grounds it in individual humanity.
It makes it real.
Exactly. It says, this wasn't just a public health issue. This was my father. This was my sister. This was my partner.
I find the psychology of wearing these at memorial services incredibly moving.
It is very powerful.
You are gathering a community of grieving people, and everyone pins this customized ribbon to their chest. It bonds the room together. But it also does something else, doesn't it? It transitions the grief from a private mourning period into a public advocacy stance.
It turns grief into fuel. It is a brilliant, heartbreaking cultural adaptation. When a family member wears a ribbon bearing the name of someone they lost, they are honoring that specific life, of course.
Right.
But they are also issuing a silent, undeniable warning to every single person who looks at them.
They're saying, look at the human cost of waiting for symptoms.
Exactly. Organizations like the Funeral Program site exist at this very raw intersection of loss and prevention.
Right.
By providing these customized totems, they give grieving families a way to feel proactive in the face of death.
Because there's nothing else you can do at that point.
Exactly. The underlying message of the customized ribbon is, my loved one ran out of time, but you haven't. Go get screened.
It transforms a symbol of clinical prevention into a profoundly personal legacy.
It's turning individual tragedy into a communal alarm bell.
And that communal alarm bell is what drives the wider ecosystem of support, research, and advocacy that surrounds this disease.
It fuels the whole movement.
Because a diagnosis or a loss doesn't just happen in a vacuum. The ripple effects are massive.
We have to look at the holistic impact. A colon cancer diagnosis carries severe emotional and psychological trauma for both the patient and their caregivers.
Oh, absolutely.
The physical body is under attack,
Yeah.
but the mind is dealing with existential dread. There's the anxiety of treatment, the financial toxicity of medical
The
bills,
bills are staggering.
and the physical alterations to their body. Sometimes this includes the need for a colostomy bag.
Which carries its own profound psychological weight and stigma.
It really does. People are terrified of that outcome.
So the visibility of the dark blue ribbon, the fact that we are forcing society to look at this, that helps reduce the stigma around seeking mental health support, doesn't it?
It does. It validates the trauma. It connects people into support groups so they aren't navigating the darkness alone.
Right.
But on a macro level, that visibility is also the engine driving systemic change.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the system? Because we spent the first half of this deep dive raving about the dual function superpower of the colonoscopy.
I did. It's an amazing tool.
It's the gold standard. It can snip the cancer right out of you. But I have a major issue with this narrative.
Let's hear it.
A colonoscopy is an invasive, expensive medical procedure.
True.
It requires a consultation. It requires you to buy the prep solution. It requires you to have a bathroom entirely to yourself for 12 hours. You have to take at least one full day, if not two, off of work. And you need someone with a car who can drive you to the clinic and drive you home because you are under anesthesia.
You're pointing out the access barriers.
I am,
Yeah.
because it feels like the ultimate battleground right now isn't just about making better cameras for the endoscope or convincing people the prep isn't that bad.
Right.
It's about health equity. The superpower exists, but it's hidden behind a massive wall of socioeconomic privilege.
It's a huge problem.
If you are an hourly worker without paid sick leave, or you live in a rural area hours away from a gastroenterologist, or your insurance has a sky-high deductible, how are you supposed to access this gold standard?
That is the most critical friction point in modern oncology. You are entirely correct.
It's frustrating.
It is. The medical innovation is vastly outpacing the social infrastructure required to deliver it.
Wow, yes.
The public health data clearly shows that mortality rates for colon cancer are significantly higher in marginalized communities, lower income populations, and rural areas.
And that's not biological.
No, it is not, because the biology of the disease changes based on your zip code. It is entirely because the access to early screening is fractured.
So the advocacy side of the dark blue ribbon isn't just saying, talk about your colon, it's actively lobbying for policy changes.
Yes. The ribbon represents the voices demanding that life-saving interventions not be treated as a luxury.
Right.
Advocacy groups are fighting to eliminate out-of-pocket costs for screenings, to mandate paid time off for preventative medical procedures, and to fund mobile screening units or community health centers in underserved areas.
But are there also technological advancements trying to bridge this gap?
There are, thankfully.
If the colonoscopy is just too cumbersome for a huge portion of the population, what else is coming down the pipeline?
This is where the research and funding really shine. We are seeing incredible advancements in non-invasive screening technologies. You've likely seen the commercials for stool DNA tests, like Cologuard.
Oh, yeah, the little box with the face on it that you get in the mail.
Exactly.
Yep.
You provide a sample at home, put it in the mail, and a lab analyzes the stool.
What are they looking for?
They're looking for microscopic blood and the specific altered DNA that polyps and tumors shed as waste passes over them.
Oh, that's
It's
clever.
very clever. Now, it's not as definitive as a colonoscopy, and if it comes back positive, you still have to go get the colonoscopy to remove the threat.
Right, because the box can't snip the polyp.
Exactly. But as a first-line screening tool that requires no time off work, no fasting, and no anesthesia, it is a total game changer for access.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And what about the future? Is there a world where we don't have to deal with stool samples or invasive tubes at all?
The holy grail of cancer screening right now is the liquid biopsy.
Liquid biopsy.
Researchers are developing highly sensitive blood tests that can detect circulating tumor DNA.
Wait, tumors shed DNA into the blood?
They do. Tiny fragments of genetic material get released into the bloodstream. We are getting very close to a reality where your annual physical includes a simple blood draw They can tell you if a polyp is growing in your colon before you have a single symptom.
A blood test that catches the biological typo. That is incredible.
Furthermore, when people do get colonoscopies, the technology is evolving rapidly there too. We are seeing the integration of artificial intelligence into the endoscope cameras.
AI is everywhere. How does it help here?
The AI acts as a second set of eyes. Remember those flat polyps we talked about?
Yeah, the ones that are hard to see.
The AI highlights those flat, hard-to-see polyps in real time on the monitor that the human eye might miss. It standardizes the quality of the procedure regardless of how fatigued the doctor might be.
So we have the biology mapped out. We know how it grows. We know how to stop it mechanically with the colonoscopy. We know how to fight it chemically with fiber and lifestyle changes. We know how to advocate for access. We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. We started by defining the stealthy, silent nature of the adenomatous polyp hiding in the dark, leveraging our cultural taboos to grow unchecked.
And we unpacked the incredible dual-function superpower of the colonoscopy, exploring the exact mechanics of how it detects and prevents simultaneously.
We break down the absolute danger of waiting for symptoms, too.
Right.
Understanding that by the time you feel fatigued or notice physical changes, the termite damage is already done.
We explored the microscopic power of your daily lifestyle, how something as simple as dietary fiber creates a chemical environment hostile to cancer.
And we examined the profound psychological weight of the dark blue ribbon.
Yes, looking at how organizations like the Funeral Program Site help communities turn their agonizing grief into customized physical totems.
Transforming private mourning into a powerful public call to action.
The ribbon is doing monumental work across all these fronts: social permission, clinical advocacy, and personal memorialization.
It truly is.
And the most important takeaway for you listening right now is that the knowledge shared in this deep dive is entirely actionable.
It's not just abstract theory.
No, you have agency in this narrative, whether it's having that awkward conversation with your parents to lock down your exact family medical history,
Right.
or making that phone call to schedule a screening you've been putting off because of fear, or even simply changing what you put on your plate tonight to feed your microbiome.
You have the tools to turn on the lights in the dark.
And as we look at the trajectory of all this advocacy, their research, the AI advancements, it leaves them with a truly compelling concept regarding the dark blue ribbon itself.
It does. Because the ultimate goal of this entire movement isn't just to make the ribbon famous.
No. What is the ultimate goal then?
The goal is for the dark blue ribbon to become completely obsolete.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If we all heed its message perfectly, if we secure equitable healthcare access for every socioeconomic group, if the blood tests and the AI screenings catch every single polyp during that 10-year biological grace period, the cancer stops existing.
It just ends.
The dark blue ribbon won't be a symbol of awareness anymore. It will become a historical relic of a disease we finally learned how to stop before it even started.
A historical relic of a disease we chose to defeat. I love that. We might not always have that simple, clean x-ray showing a broken bone, and we certainly cannot afford to wait for the smoke alarm to melt before we take action.
Absolutely not.
But we absolutely have the power to protect ourselves. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking hard questions, keep advocating for yourselves and your communities, and please, prioritize your health. We will catch you next time.